They told you that waiting 40 years for freedom was a plan. I call it a prison sentence. You are handing your life's work to strangers. You are hoping they give it back to you later, when your spine is weaker, your time is shorter, and your appetite for risk is gone. That is not retirement. That is delayed obedience. I did not become powerful by waiting. I did it by controlling the machine. A 401k teaches you to celebrate participation. I built systems that rewarded control. One makes you feel safe, the other makes you dangerous. So listen carefully, because what I am about to say will offend the polite people and wake up the serious ones. A 401k is sold as protection, but structurally, it is a leash. It locks your liquidity behind rules you did not write. Try to reach for it too early, and you are punished. That is not a feature, that is the design. The system calls it an additional tax. You will feel it as a penalty. Yet the schedule of access belongs to someone else. And while your money sits there, fund managers feed on it. They take management fees whether you win or lose. That is not partnership. That is rent. The Securities and Exchange Commission explains it plainly. Fees and expenses reduce what you keep. They are often expressed as an expense ratio. Most people never read the prospectus. Most people never do the math. That is why the 401k feels comfortable. Comfort is expensive. Market volatility rises, your account swings, your stomach tightens, but the fee continues. Calm, automatic, ruthless. A 401k is not an investment. It is a loan you give to the system, then hope to be repaid later in currency that has already been diluted by inflation. You call it saving. I call it outsourcing your life to a spreadsheet. I did not worship the account. I worshiped asset control. I did not ask, how do I get a higher return? I asked, who has the lever? The middle class builds retirement around a container. The elite build retirement around a command structure. Private trusts, private contracts, private governance, not because they are fashionable, because they create legal distance between the asset and the predator. The state sees an account and thinks taxable event. A plaintiff sees an account and thinks easy settlement. A banker sees an account and thinks collateral. A structure changes the conversation. A trust is not a rich person's allowance. A trust is a rule book that survives you. It decides who can access capital, when, for what purpose, and under what supervision. That is why the wealthy do not retire. They transition from active management to managed control. And yes, liquidity matters, not just growth. Liquidity is the ability to move when others must wait. Liquidity is the ability to buy when others are begging a committee for permission. That is why the elites surround themselves with instruments and entities designed for flexibility. Insurance contracts, foundations, holding companies, because the point is not the product. The point is the position. When I built my empire, I did not want a tax deferred account. I wanted a structure that could outlive political moods. I wanted systems that remained functional even when the rules changed, because the rules always change. Let's speak about the enemy that never sleeps: tax liability and inflation. Inflation is the silent thief. It does not kick down your door, it changes the value of what is inside your house. The Federal Reserve System itself acknowledges the basic truth. Inflation erodes purchasing power, meaning the same dollars buy less over time. Now combine that with a system that delays your access. You work, you contribute, you wait. And then, when you finally touch the money, the government takes its share through taxation at rates you cannot predict decades in advance. Why would any intelligent person volunteer for a game where the referee can change the rules when you are old? The IRS also explains that retirement accounts are not simply yours when you want them. There are required minimum distribution rules. At a certain age, you must start taking withdrawals from retirement plan accounts. Read that again. You must. So the system controls the timing on the way in and the timing on the way out. That is not freedom, that is regulated consumption, and in the middle of it all, fees compound against you. Not compound interest, compound fees. A small percentage, repeated for decades, is a private tax. The middle class fears losing money. The elite fear losing control. Because money can be remade. Control, once surrendered, is expensive to repurchase. A 401k turns you into a participant. You select from a menu. You hope the market behaves. You wait for permission to access your own value. That is participation. Ownership is different. Ownership is the ability to move capital today, not at 59 and a half, not at 73, not when a rule book says you may. My assets did not wait for a retirement age. They worked during recessions. They worked during panics. They worked while other men stared at their statements like farmers praying for rain. You want the philosophical difference in one sentence? Participants ask, what will the market give me? Owners ask, what do I control regardless of the market? That is why the elite favor real infrastructure, productive enterprises, contractual cash flow, and legal structures that separate risk from assets. They do not buy comfort, they buy leverage. The screen moves fast. Most men panic. The owner remains still because his system does not depend on his emotions. Here is my verdict: calm, cold, final. If your retirement depends on a government approved account, you are not a billionaire in the making. You are a tenant of the state. You are leasing the idea of security, paid for with your liquidity, your optionality, and your time. And the most ruthless part? They convinced you it was responsibility. They told you, be a good citizen, lock your capital, wait patiently. That instruction is not designed for your freedom. It is designed for the system's stability. The elite do not worship stability, they create it inside their own structures. They do not build retirement plans, they build exit routes. They do not chase returns, they chase control, liquidity control, tax control, asset control, legal control. Because the man who controls the structure does not need luck, he needs discipline. So I will ask you a question that is simple, but it is not comfortable. Are you building wealth, or are you building a cage and calling it a nest? Comment control if you are tired of waiting. Comment TRAP if you've realized the truth. Subscribe to understand the architecture of the 1%.